Guys, welcome to another video, and you've got Mr. Everything English. Now today we are talking about an easy fix to your English literature problem. A common issue, guys, in any English literature essay is adding AO3. Now AO3 essentially means, guys, looking at the background of a text. Now the background of a text specified by the exam board is either social or historical. But if you think about these terms as terms, you're not really going to have a clue what to put down in your exam. Practically, guys, there's so much context you can talk about. But the issue is this: we don't know what the exam question is. So on one hand, you must learn your text. Then you must learn your quotes. Then you must learn your themes. Context is not something you need to learn. There is some context, guys, that can be applied to any text in any scenario. And that's what we're going to cover in this video. In this video, guys, I'm going to give you the one piece of context that I guarantee you can apply to every single English literature question and every single English literature text. Now, how do we use context in our exam? Guys, in your exam for English literature, each question is approximately 45 minutes long and they are worth approximately 30 marks if we ignore the AO4 for SPAG for now. Out of the 4 paragraphs that you're looking to produce in 45 minutes, one of those paragraphs is enough if you use context. So you only need to mention context once in your entire essay. At a maximum, you want to mention it twice, because it is not a history essay, it is an English essay, and AO3 is only worth 6 out of the 30 marks. So you only want to mention it once, maximum twice. Now, which AO3, guys, are we going to be using? We will be using the AO3 that is the most common AO3 and the easiest one to use. Now, if you follow me, guys, on TikTok and Insta, you will know what I'm talking about because I've made videos about this before. But the reason I'm doing it now on YouTube is because I really want to explore this in a little bit more depth because I want to get it out of the way once and for all. Now, guys, the context that I'm talking about is as follows. Patriarchy. If you were to go onto your social media accounts, whether it be Instagram or TikTok, there are certain things that all of us will find. There are certain men who have loads of followers for particular reasons, and there are certain women who have loads of followers for particular reasons. Now, one way of looking at it, guys, is that this is because of patriarchy. And the result of patriarchy is a patriarchal society. Now, those are the terms that you want to use. Now, what is patriarchy and what is a patriarchal society? Guys, patriarchy in a nutshell is essentially a society that is dominated by man, or by men, more like. Now, that doesn't mean that the person in charge has to be male. It's talking about the idea that male ideas are dominant and females are seen as inferior and weaker in comparison to men. And it's an offshoot of capitalism. Capitalism is what causes patriarchy, and this trickles down to the people at the bottom. So, guys, patriarchy, it manifests, for example, when women are sexualized. In a lot of the text that you read, women are sold as commodities, are sold as objects when it comes to marriage. Women are obedient to the man. The man is the one in charge. The man is the one making the money. The man is the one almost doing as he pleases. In a lot of the text, guys, you see women as almost being trophies. They are there as either a trophy wife to boost the man's status, or they are also there, guys, to almost make the reader understand how powerful the man is through the kind of woman he's married. Now, guys, in about 30 seconds on the board, I'm going to put 5 or 4 texts up. And I'm going to apply patriarchy to these 4 or 5 different texts because I really want you guys to get an idea about how patriarchy can be used in every single text. On behind me on the board, guys, we've got Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth, Inspector Calls, and Jekyll and Hyde. Now let's apply patriarchy to these 4 texts. So guys, let's begin with an Inspector Calls. Guys, Inspector Calls is oozing with patriarchy. Where do we begin? Let's start with Mr. Burling. Guys, Mr. Burling, he is a typical patriarchal man. He believes he is super powerful. Number 1, because he's wealthy, but number 2, because he is a man. Therefore, he believes 2 things. He can sack Eva Smith and there will be no repercussions. But number 2, the most important part, guys, is when he finds out that Gerald was with Daisy Renton, he says to his daughter Sheila, relax, it's okay, don't be too hasty. Now this is pure patriarchy, because for him, his daughter's marriage to Gerald is a business deal, and therefore he reinforces patriarchy by almost sticking to his guns and not supporting his daughter. Further patriarchy, guys, is when Eric arguably rapes Eva Smith and none of the characters on stage batter an eyelid. But when they find out that Eric has been stealing, Mr. Burling himself, he comes alive. Patriarchy, guys, they view women as second-class citizens. They view women as sexual objects where you can pretty much do what you want to them. And that is why when he finds out that Eric arguably raped Eva Smith, he doesn't really care. Now, let's try to flip this and try to push for like a grade 8 or a grade 9 point. How can you argue that the inspector is also a patriarchal man? Even though the inspector is seen as the complete opposite to Mr. Burling, how could you argue that he's a patriarchal man? Guys, there's one very easy way. You can argue that the inspector tactfully and skillfully targets Sheila Burling. He understands, guys, that Sheila Burling is a young woman. Now, being a young woman means that she's not fixed in her ways. She can be changed, and he picks upon that. And he almost grooms her throughout the play to become his puppet. Well, he's the puppet, he's the puppeteer, she is the puppet. And he is pulling her strings throughout the play. So guys, you can argue the inspector understands that as a patriarchal man, it is easier to control women than it is men, and therefore he targets Sheila Burling. That's one way of looking at patriarchy in an Inspector Calls. Now guys, let's switch to patriarchy in Macbeth. Now guys, Macbeth is full of it. You meet the witches and they are described as masculine characters. They've got beards and they've got clothes that are withered and wearing away. What do they show, guys? That for a woman to be powerful, they must become more masculine. And this is reinforced by Lady Macbeth, who says, unsex me here. This doesn't mean she wants to become a man. This means she understands that as a woman, she must be less feminine and more masculine. Guys, these are all examples of patriarchy. Your grade 8, your grade 9 patriarchy is as follows. Shakespeare in the play through Lady Macbeth, he clearly shows us that women cannot handle power and authority, because Lady Macbeth, she is like the law of gravity. What goes up must come down, and as she becomes powerful, at the same time she begins to lose her mind and she eventually commits suicide. Shakespeare, guys, therefore, through the character of Lady Macbeth, illustrates that women are not capable of handling power the way men are. Say what you want about Macbeth, he still goes out on his shield fighting just the way he was at the beginning of the play in Act 1, Scene 2. Now guys, let's move on to J and H. This stands for Jekyll and Hyde. Guys, Jekyll and Hyde is a bit of a weird text when it comes to patriarchy. It's staring you in the face, but at the same time, a lot of people miss it. Guys, your simple and obvious patriarchy in Jekyll and Hyde is the fact that there are no prominent female characters. There's none. It's full of men who are friends, who are cousins, who are acquaintances, but you never hear the prominent voice of a female unless the female is a victim. Our first female victim is the girl who is trampled over. Our second female victim is the maid who watches Hyde batter Sir Danvers Carew. These are the two females that we meet who have the largest part in the text, and even then it's tiny. There are no other female voices. The whole text, guys, is built upon male power, male freedom, men essentially covering up for other men and doing whatever they want. Now, lastly, guys, let's talk about Romeo and Juliet. Patriarchy in Romeo and Juliet. The first thing you want to say is the following. I hate Romeo, so I'm going to go for Romeo first. Guys, Romeo juxtaposes a patriarchal man. I said it, guys, earlier on TikTok. Romeo is a wet, moist character. He's so annoying. Shakespeare even describes him as having no hair on his legs. Why? Because Romeo does not fit the description of a patriarchal man. He's moping over women. He's in love the entire text, apparently. And then he dies for love. This is not what a patriarchal man does. He is almost inferior to Juliet in the way he behaves. She is stronger. She is more powerful. She makes her decisions almost for herself rather than him, who just follows his desires. Now, at the same time, that's one argument, guys. I'm not saying it's the only argument. You could almost argue against that if you wanted to. But at the same time, guys, you can argue that Capulet displays your typical patriarchal man. At the beginning of the play, he talks about how he loves Juliet and how she's so important to him. And he tells Paris to wait for a while. But like any patriarchal man, when the going gets tough, they revert back to their natural ways. He, a couple of acts later, threatened Juliet, saying, if you don't do as I say, you will be dragged to the altar. He wants to sell his daughter. His daughter is almost a burden that he now has to pass over because she's reached a certain age. Guys, this is patriarchy through and through. And then look at the mother and how she's obedient to Capulet. Regardless of how she feels, she does as she's told. Guys, patriarchy is in all four of these texts, and patriarchy is in every other text that you will study in English literature. So get used to it, because in an English literature essay, all you have to do is use patriarchy AO3 in your answer, and you will get the marks for AO3. But if you're going to do it once, but do it properly. So don't just say, this can be linked to patriarchy. Full stop. Explain how, just the way I've explained how patriarchy is apparent in these four texts. Alright guys, I'm going to end the video here. Thank you for watching. It's been Mr. Everything English. Peace.